Hi guys, we're going to do the equation of this graph. This is a trig function, so I'm going to find the sine and cosine equations of this graph, and I'll take you through some of the steps to do this. So the first thing that I have marked off on this graph are the max, which is here, and the min, which is here. So the max is 3, and the min is -1. Okay, once you've located those on your graph, you can find two key pieces of information. We can find the amplitude by doing max minus min over 2. Okay, which in this case is 4 over 2, gives us 2. That is the a value actually. So you just found the a value of your graph. The a value is 2. So we'll box that up because that will be important for later. Okay, we can also find the c value by doing max plus min over 2. And this is also our midline, so it basically separates all mountains from valleys. So our c value is 1. I'm going to box that up as well. Okay, and when I find the c value, what I like to do, and this is going to help me a little bit later, is just draw a line across here at the c value. So c value of 1, and again, it should separate my graph totally completely in half. So the mountains should be the same height as the values, and we can see here that it does separate my graph very well. Okay, next step here is to determine the k value. So we need to do that by finding the period. So remember, the period is the length of a cycle. So we basically want to measure, you can measure from a max to a max, a min to a min. You can measure from this midline here to the next time you hit the midline. Just make sure you have a full cycle. So this one I think is pretty easy if we measure right from min to min. And min to min takes 60 units. So basically my period is 60. And I can find my k value by doing 360 over the period. Okay, and we're going to get 360 over 60, which will give us 6. No, it won't. Just kidding. Yes, it will. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing here. There we go, 6. The last thing that we're going to do is find the d values for sine and cosine. Okay, sine, the basic sine graph. Okay, sine always starts at a rising mountain. Okay, so we're going to trace along the center line from the y-axis until we hit a rising mountain, which is right here. And this happens 15 units to the right. Now for cosine, this is going to be a little bit different. Cosine always starts at a max. Okay, so this is our basic cosine graph, and it's always starting at a maximum right here. So we want to find the distance from the y-axis to the closest max, which happens to be 30 units to the right. And we just found both of our values. So we're just going to put all of this together into our equations. So let's start with sine. Y equals, a we found to be 2. Sine, k we said was 6. The phase shift for sine was 15 right. And our c value was 1. Okay, the only difference between sine and cosine ever is the d value shift. And in this case, this one was 30. Okay, I want to do one other type of question, and that's where it just gives you information, and you have to put that together into an equation. Okay, so last question here. We have a sinusoidal function. This just means like a sine or a cosine function. And it has an amplitude of 3, a period of 120, and a max occurring at 0, 5. Okay, so the first thing that we know here is that we have an amplitude of 3. So this tells us that our a value is 3. Okay, we also see here that we have a period of 120, which will help us find our k value. So we'll do 360 over 120. And that tells us that our k value is 3. We also need to know where the c value is and where our d value is. So our c value can be found if we locate the middle of our graph. Right now I know that my maximum occurs at 0, 5, meaning it occurs 5 units above the x-axis. Okay? If I travel down my amplitude from that, which is 3, I should hit the middle of my graph, which happens at 2. And then if I traveled down 3 more units, I would hit my min, which would be at -1. Okay, so my C value is 2. Okay, the next thing that we also know is that our max occurs at 0. Okay, and if your max occurs at 0, it's telling you information about the cosine function. So the d value for cosine is actually 0 because my max occurs at an x value of 0. Okay, so always look for where that x value is. If it tells you information about the max, it's telling you information about cosine. Okay, so here's my cosine function. Oh, actually, you know what? We don't have a d value, so let's write it like this. 3x plus 2. Okay, so no d value, so we're not putting anything in here. Now, to get from cosine to sine, we need to understand how the cosine and sine functions work and how they're related. So if I have a cosine function, let's say this function here, okay, here's my max. My rising midline, which is what we look for with sine, okay, always occurs to the left of that, okay? Here's our rising mountain. So I know if my max occurs at 0, my rising midline is actually going to occur toward the left of that. So if I want to change a cosine function into a sine function, I'm going to do, so normally it would be 90, but we need to account for any stretches or compressions. So it's going to be 90 over k to the left, plus any existing shift. Now, in this case, we don't have any existing shift, so that's nice, but if you do have an existing shift, you need to compensate for that. So this is going to be 90 over 3 left, which gives us a shift 30 left. So my sine function will be 3 sine 3 x plus 30 plus 2. Okay, and if you had a sine function and you were trying to get to a cosine function, it's going to be 90 over k right plus any existing shift. Okay, and there you have it. There's our two functions.